imagine starting anywhere else after the box office as this movie did. $253 million in North America alone. $87.2 million global, making it the third highest domestic box office of all time in quote unquote these trying times, meaning that we're in the middle of a pandemic, which is the go-to excuse for literally everything that doesn't work now.
Yeah.
No matter what happens, they have this built-in excuse. And it's funny, this movie, this article, this box office proves that it's really bull. It's not actually a problem. It's just it's a problem of Hollywood not being able to tell engaging stories or giving the fans what they want. And I think these are the numbers that kind of back that up.
It was exciting. I was in the theater with you guys.
Okay, yeah. So how about this? Before we get into the article, you were Shane. Me and Miracle did a full 60-minute episode discussing the movie for our Friday episode. You can find that on the YouTube channel here. There's a 10-minute version that's just non-spoilers, and then the rest of it, the other 50-minute segment, is a full-on discussion about the movie. But Shane was there with us in the theater. Why don't you give us your thoughts on the movie?
Okay. So I know last time I spoke about Spider-Man, I made a few people mad at me because I'm not the biggest Spider-Man fan.
Oh,
like me,
which is weird because I think I said this. Spider-Man has some of my favorite villains. I love Venom. I love Carnage. Always. And I think it was also my first time back in a theater in a very long time.
Yeah, Chris Carr said the same thing.
Chris Carr said the same thing. He said he thinks that his approval of the movie was highly colored by the fact that he just hadn't been able to experience a movie in a theater in such a long time. Yeah. And it probably hit him on a deeper level than it probably would have, given that he doesn't really have a deep connection to the Marvel movies or the Marvel lore, for instance. So that's, perhaps that's why.
On a surface level, I had a really good time being in a theater. I loved people's reactions, hearing... everyone was so excited for all the things that were happening. I don't know how much, I'm not going to give spoilers away if you haven't seen it yet, but really fun things happened. I laughed a lot. Yeah. I mean, again, I don't want to get spoiled. There's some cameos.
You can give.
Can I talk about cameos?
I think we can talk.
Guys,
we can
talk about it.
Chris, our editor, Chris is going to hate me for doing this, but you guys, if you don't want to know spoilers, maybe skip the segment because it's you handicap the speaker when
no. It's not But look on the YouTube channel. Our spoiler review got more views than our non-spoilers, so you should be fine.
I don't think people care as much about that.
It's not even a big thing, but JB Smoove is someone I love, and seeing his small cameo, I was laughing hard. And it was Hannibal Buress as well. I don't know the other guy so well, but those two in particular, really funny. So many funny parts. So much dialogue that I was really enjoying. So on a surface level, surrounded by people, I had popcorn. Yeah. Felt great. I also felt like really old because it was a very young audience. And I'm not as like Chris Carr, I'm not as versed in the Marvel world. So they were getting every reference and I felt a little left out. Like I was like Rip Van Winkle. I just came back and I'm like, what is going on here?
Yeah.
Okay. So that was that. But I suck the life and joy of everything as someone who sits at a computer and writes all the time. And I had a few issues with like just the overall story about trying. This is my problem, and this is, I guess, a spoiler. But
go ahead.
You try to cure a supervillain, right, of their villainous superpowers, and then they're good people. They're cured. My problem was they were bad people
beforehand. Yeah, I was asking Brett too. I was like, because the spell is going to send them back to their deaths, but since Tom Holland's Spider-Man, he quote unquote cured them. Wouldn't they still die either way because they killed themselves? It wasn't Spider-Man's.
No, the logic is that they die fighting Spider-Man. So if they're cured, they won't end up fighting Spider-Man in that world. I think is what they're trying to get at.
If they're cured in the other dimension, are they cured now retroactively in the other?
Who knows? Do they go back to the other side?
Because Doc Ock still has his octopus robotic arms.
That chip could just as easily short out again.
Exactly.
And, I always thought that it was interesting that the Green Goblin, that always looked more like just general mental illness to me. Yeah. Like it's portrayed, him looking homeless. It's portrayed as if you should be afraid of homeless people, which is clearly not the truth.
You should fear them. LA and New York, duh.
It's not. That's not necessarily necessarily
Instead
what it
of
is.
bombs, there's
Exactly.
feces.
He's obviously not homeless, but I'm saying you get those vibes. The person who looks kind of crazy talking to themselves.
Right.
It evokes a certain imagery.
Yeah.
Right. And I do think you're probably right. Like hearing them, especially what it cost Peter and really anyone who was living in that building. One thing that I have a problem with these movies is, especially critics, they gloss over when they want something to not seem like people died in that. But there's no way nobody died during that the scene where other than Aunt May. There's no way that most of the people in that apartment complex weren't crushed. Right? So you're forgiving them. Shouldn't we be at the very maybe you do it and you arrest them if you can. Maybe you don't send them back to their world to give them a free pass.
Well, this is one of my favorite.
And we're nitpicking here.
No, but this is the underlying narrative.
The issue that you had.
The issue of rehabilitation, the prison system, which I think is broken, and recidivism, right? And who can people be rehabbed? And as we see in the movie, some can, some can't.
Yep.
But doesn't it ruin the timeline too? Because in Loki and then Doctor Strange talked about it too. If you mess with a little thing, just changing them or curing them, wouldn't that make a whole different timeline?
I don't know if I don't think multiverse and space-time necessarily are interacting on the same level here. I don't know. This isn't time travel. It's interdimensional travel.
Hard to know though, because and I don't want to get too much in the weeds here, but Tobey's Spider-Man is an older.
Yes.
Yeah, he's the oldest one.
So he's got back problems. But the people he supposedly killed happened
when he was in his 20s and 30s.
Yeah.
So it's I don't know if that's intentional or they just didn't figure that out.
I will say that I do think it handicaps itself in being that it relies on the audience's understanding of the lore in the movies. But that's kind of to be expected now. If you're creating an interconnected universe, it does handicap them in that way. Yeah. That means that if they're going to do interconnected, they might as well lean into it, right? So the hardest part is to try and make a movie that's both a stellar movie on its own, but also fits within this wider world, right? They just leaned very hard into the lore of past movies.
So this is probably a good transition into the box office numbers, because I think what we've been seeing is an economy of nostalgia.
Yeah. Oh,
this movie is nothing without nostalgia.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's all nostalgia. So I think I told you, but when other Spider-Men appear, it was exciting for me. I almost cried. I'm like, damn, this is amazing. But when I remember watching Tobey as Spider-Man, no one really liked him. It was a lot of us talking smack on him. And the same for Garfield.
Yep.
So now, just because of pure nostalgia, you're happy to see him again. It's weird to me.
It's I think, to me, we're in an age now where audiences are so starved to actually get what they want from these movies, meaning that we're going to talk about it with The Matrix later. We're going to talk about it with how things are done over at Star Wars, meaning that they want to, the number one thing they always talk about in Hollywood is subverting expectations. Subvert. Yeah. You think they want one thing. What's that quote there? It said, I give the audience what they don't realize they want.
Right.
Bullshit. Your job, that's not your job.
Yeah.
Your job is to make a good movie. If it happens to be a bit different than what the audience thinks they want, sometimes that works. But in these types of movies, you should be giving them what they want because you're banking on a built-in audience, right?
Yes. Yep. I agree. I just don't think it does anything, and maybe this doesn't matter, for the culture. I want to see movies that really change culture, landmark movies, right? So when I talk about nostalgia, and now clearly Spider-Man is all about nostalgia within its universe and the broader Marvel universe. And I was looking at the 2020 top grossing movies, right? And so it was domestic. Spider-Man got $253 million.
$253 million North America. And remember, 2020 is hampered. That is an actual pandemic with shutdowns. So
we can agree to disagree, but
I'm saying, I know what you're saying. I mean, business shutdowns. No, I know. The theaters weren't open.
Bad Boys for Life was #1 top grossing of last year.
Yep. Pre-pandemic. It came out. It came out right before lockdowns.
Okay, January 17th. Yeah, they did 204 mil.
Yeah, right before lockdowns.
Okay. And so when did Sonic came out? Right during lockdowns.
Yeah.
That's #3.
And Sonic does well because the audience asked that they change the ugly design of Nightmare Fuel original Sonic trailer. They changed it, and we see consistently if you give the audience what they want, they will show up to the theater. But instead, they make movies that they realize that critics want, audiences don't want, and then when it doesn't work out, they blame the pandemic,
true,
which is bullshit.
Oh yeah, it is.
Because $253 million, ain't nobody care about about a virus if you're going to go out and get to see all 3 Spider-Men on screen together.
Right.
Like, so let's, also, before I continue, what is your idea of a movie maybe of this size that does positively affect the culture?
Well, I was looking at last year's, and I thought I like 1917 a lot. It's still, in a way, nostalgic because it's a war movie. Yeah. It's got that feeling, but I thought the way it was filmed, beautiful.
The filmmaking process,
the imagery. There's a scene in there with the lights, and at night it was unbelievable. Yep. I'm trying to think. I love Once Upon a Time. I love Joker, even though that's based. I mean, everything's rooted in nostalgia to some degree.
I would say Joker might be a good example of a movie of this genre or similar genre adjacent. I suppose they're not really. One's a superhero movie. One's more of a character study.
Yeah, and it's still even built in with nostalgia because it's such a callback to like Taxi Driver, right?
Exactly. That was where the inspiration for that movie came from. Mary, have you seen Taxi Driver?
I was reading a summary of it yesterday.
Okay. Close enough.
Yeah.
We'll take it.
Yeah.
I saw a Wikipedia page.
So, I did. I was like, I did research for Brett.
Yeah. Oh, but I was just going to say, I'm looking at 2020 in terms of this economy of nostalgia. It's Bad Boys for Life remake. 1917, we can talk about that. Sonic, Jumanji, Star Wars.
But there's there's hundreds of these remakes that don't do well because they don't treat the property with any sort of reverence or any sort of actual kindness to the source material. I go on about that all the time here.
Yeah.
Like, because to me, it's I mentioned the YouTuber who said that these things don't have built-in fans, they have built-in critics. You're better off making a new property if you want to now, rather than risk. For every Spider-Man No Way Home, there's a show or a movie that just goes meh because it's not faithful to the material.
Yep.
Look at, I mean, people are sick of it. Like Michael Bay's Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movies did all right, but they're Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is like a gazillion-dollar franchise. It should have done way more than that because Michael Bay did not really. And for one, I am unapologetically a fan of the first 3 Transformers movies because they're just popcorn fun, and I know they're nothing like any of the comics or any of the cartoons, right?
Yeah.
But I love them.
I walked out of one of them.
So
I was so
I
disgusted.
understand why people hate it, but I like I'm also one of those people like U.S. military, lens flare and 360 camera shots. I can get into that in a theater. It doesn't bother me. But it's also that's not trying to shove a message down your throat. Most of these remakes where they fail is trying to insert some type of modern day topical lesson into something that's supposed to be either pure nostalgia or at the very least faithful to the source material.
Yeah. Oh, another thing I said last time I was on the show, and I want to readdress again, is I was talking a lot of smack on Tom Holland. I wasn't really familiar with him at all. Yeah. He proved himself to me as a good Spider-Man.
When we did our review, I said that he earned his place as in this. The scene that, as much as you don't like the Aunt May scene because of the
boring, unsympathetic death, but
his acting in that scene, I told Mary, I said he looked 10 years older than he was while he was doing that scene. I think he did fantastic there. And if you look at here, like at the movies that this has now surpassed as far as box office, it beat out The Force Awakens, which opened to $247.9 million. It beat out, and it's just shy of Avengers Infinity War and Avengers Endgame, which are arguably the 2 biggest movies of the decade. Of the last 10 years, right? Yeah. They had 10 years of buildup to make those movies with box office like that, right? So Endgame is the real culmination of Phase 3 of the Marvel Universe, which is 10 years of filmmaking. Spider-Man has been around since Civil War, which I believe was 2016. That's only 5 years, and it has a comparable box office.
Yeah.
So it proves to you that the pandemic is not an actual excuse. It proves to you that if you just make a movie we can agree on how much messaging there was. You saw more of it than I think the average person would see. Yeah. Me and you are very, very hypersensitive to any type of messaging that ends up in these movies. It did, like, for whatever there was in here, I felt like it was handled deftly enough. And the main thing is they avoided it in the marketing. They did not market it as some type of woke, modern day. It's just a classic superhero story.
Yeah. One of the things, though, and I think I'm allowed to talk about this, is the way they portrayed Jay Jonah.
Yeah.
And he's like the Alex Jones type.
I love it.
Right?
I loved it.
But it was funny to me because I thought it was funny. But in narrative terms, it was funny because that's one of the first things they say on the whole movie is controversial news site.
Yeah.
And then, but they're broadcasting that on all the skyscrapers.
Yeah.
I'm like, that doesn't
realistic.
make sense at all. That's like putting that's like putting Alex Jones on Times Square.
Yep.
Yeah. That's what people are hearing.
That would never happen.
Little things that I'm just nitpicking, but I overall had a really fun time.
Yep. So it says 113. Like, I was actually surprised at the box. I felt like the box office from Homecoming and No Way Home fell short of expectations. I don't think Homecoming made $1 billion. And I would have expected Homecoming to make $1 billion at the box office, given the name recognition of Spider-Man. First, his appearance in Civil War, but also maybe it's working off the quote-unquote damage that had been done by the Garfield franchise, right? Yeah. But I just really think that this box office proves to a lot of people that you don't that the pandemic in these industries is an excuse for just making stuff that people don't want, and then when people don't want it, they say, "Oh, it's because nobody's coming to nobody went to see West Side Story because of the pandemic." No, nobody wants a West Side Story.
It's already good.
You don't need to remake the 1961.
And the other thing, and maybe I'm reading. No, I'm not reading it too much. I don't think you can correct me if I'm wrong. But overall, the movie that I liked about Spider-Man is its theme of redemption.
Yep,
we're not only trying to redeem inside the movie the villains, but it's in a funny way a wink and a nod to the audience and them trying to redeem Tobey and Andrew Garfield,
which
Spider-Man.
They did.
They
absolutely did. I never felt that Tobey needed to be redeemed, but I felt like Garfield made the most.
When he's dancing as Venom,
one bad movie
undid the whole franchise.
One bad movie of 3 does not undo how good those first 2 are. But I will say that Garfield probably got the most had the most to gain out of this. First of all, he didn't need to make this movie, right? He's doing very well as an actor these days. I would argue that he probably, like if they're talking to agents, like we need to get these characters back, they could get Maguire back pretty easily. Garfield's got a lot to work for. He doesn't need to come back for this.
He did a great job.
But he was able to redeem that character in a way that would have only worked in this situation.
Oh, it gave him a great scene.
And I think that it shows in the box office. If you look at the so the totals here, it's $253 million on 4,336 screens. That's a lot. That's a high amount of screens. And obviously nothing else at the box office was anywhere close because this is the only story this weekend.
Yeah.
So if you tell a good story, if you tell a serviceable story, you leave out the identity politics.
Yep.
You focus on fun and being as accurate to the character as possible. You don't make the side characters annoying.
This is where my issue comes in, and doesn't mean it's bad, but I just have a different taste, right? And when I'm sitting in that theater, these are people around me enjoying it like it's a theme park ride.
Yeah.
It's a physical reaction.
Yeah, they
when
always
I go to the
scream.
movies, I want to be like tortured in my mind. Like I like things like David Lynch and stuff. I mean, I love pop culture too, but
that's like what Ridley Scott compares these movies to theme park rides.
Oh yeah,
it was either Ridley Scott or it was
maybe it was Scorsese who said
Scorsese who said they're not movies, they're theme park rides.
I felt that as the portals open and someone emerges and the crowd goes wild. It's a nostalgia roller coaster.
Maybe you're hampered. Like you see that scene where Garfield catches MJ and redeems himself for Gwen in Spider-Man, in the Amazing Spider-Man 2. Maybe you don't have the same visceral reaction without the rest of the crowd cheering along.
I teared up.
Yep.
I still do. It still works on me.
You're like, I don't even know why, but it does.
I heard him tell the story earlier, and that's all I needed to have a visceral reaction.
Yeah, just context.
They did do a good job. I'm not saying the story's bad. I got some issues.
I do think it was paced masterfully. I do think the pacing was fantastic.
Once it started, the beginning was a little like.
I love the beginning.
It went a little, I think, long. The pacing to me in the beginning was
long. I thought it was kind of quick because
what do you consider the beginning?
You mean when he catches MJ and they go through and they swing through the city? Basically the cold open.
Yeah, that one.
I guess I see the beginning as like right until everything falls apart. Everything from the beginning.
Act 1. Okay.
Yeah. It's even less than an Act 1.
He's moving through the city. He's going from place to place.
Yeah.
He's not really sitting in one. They're not holding one scene for too long.
Yeah.
I think it's cut well.
Yeah.
I was never bored, which I get very bored very easily.
I wasn't bored either. Only when Aunt May was dying.
Yeah.
I love that scene. I can't help it. And like I said, if they had marketed that scene as her giving the Uncle Ben lines, I would have hated it. I would have despised it.
Right.
But they didn't. So maybe I'm giving it more leeway because I was just happy with the fact that it was marketed well.
She was dying happy with bad choices that killed her.
Well, you are being far too logical for a theme. You're being far too logical and critical for what is a self-proclaimed theme park. Well, not self-proclaimed, which is a theme park ride movie. And the rest of us are just kind of, and you know me, like I am hypercritical of these movies. So to me, like with how much I hated the Eternals, like I despised the Eternals.
Right.
How much how mediocre I thought Shang-Chi was. All of these movies, maybe I was just desperate for anything that felt like even the semblance of being above average.
Here's something that's an intersection of Marvel, nostalgia, and what I think is more of a cultural landmark, the Thor Ragnarok.
Yeah. Okay. Speaking of
that movie rocked.
Yeah.
I love that movie. It was so much fun.
It was a lot of fun.
I love that writer too.
I'm not the biggest Taika Waititi fan.
Oh really? You don't like? I don't know if we can get into it. But I love Jojo Rabbit.
I kind of like that movie. I was watching it.
Really good.
Maybe I might also be judging him because I don't like his personality.
Oh,
as
separate
much.
that, dude. The vampire movie was incredible.
Me and you take different approaches on this.
We do.
He can separate art from the artist masterfully. I say if you're going to you hold yourself accountable for your actions, and if you're going to speak without thinking, it should cost you. Like I'm not going to support you bad mouthing whole swaths of an audience, and so like I'm not going to reward that.
Right. I get that. I get that. It comes with me. It's like most of the people I love as painters or musicians seem to be the worst of people.
Artsy stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there's a really don't give them the megaphone. Like I said, just hire a PR person and stay off Twitter.
Ugh. Don't get PR. Do the opposite.
Look at like Tom Holland is like universally loved because he's just kind of like a dork and like he would leak stuff from the movies all the time. So he seems very like the everyman in a way.
Yeah, and you're right. He's also very faithful to the Spider-Man.
Yeah,
like he did all that very well,
and he loves the character. Like he, so I think that it earned its $253 million. I also think this movie's going to have legs. I don't think this movie's going to have an extreme drop off.
Yeah, I think it's gonna. What do you think? How many? 8?
I think it'll.
Come on now.
Because if the drop is over 50%, that's still like $153 million, or it's like $125 million next week.
Yeah.
I think that this movie will. It's also with the Matrix coming out, but the Matrix is a day and date release, meaning that like I'm not going to the theater to see it. I'm going to watch it on HBO Max.
Oh, you're not going to watch it with us?
No, we're gonna. I mean, if they get tickets, I'll go see it in the theater. But
I think Tim is going to get tickets for us. That's what Chris told me.
If not, like I would be just as fine watching it on HBO Max.
Yeah.
But I don't think the Matrix will. I think Spider-Man stays number one at the box office next week.
Interesting. When's the last time a superhero movie wasn't the number one? Or Bad Boys, I guess is.
Well, no.
I guess it happens often, right?
It's not like they're in theaters all year round.
It seems like they are.
Ghostbusters is not a superhero movie. Encanto was number one for a couple of weeks. That's not a.
That's good.
It's not a.
But that's an animated children's story, and like
those are bigger box office. I mean, horror movies are the ones that end up making the most profit because they cost nothing to make,
that's true.
and they bring in huge amounts at the box office.
Yeah.
So I'm very. Starved for movies that give the audience what they want. It's the critics that always have this complaint of like what's too much fan service.
Right.
But in an age where they want to subvert your expectations and not give you what they want, I say give the people what they want.
Why don't they just do what Japan does for fan service?
What's that?
Keep going.
Keep on going and just do filler episodes where they tell a story. Also, a lot of boobas.
I don't know about that.
Of course, it doesn't really work at the box office here. But different.
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah. Why doesn't that work anymore? I thought that was the thing.
Because that here now you'd be labeled as bad for doing that.
But come on, look at Japan. It was kind of like working for a bit.
Well, still, it works over there. It doesn't work for supposedly conservative America. So, yes,
They're
for shame.
Missing out.
If you had to pick who was the breakout performer next to Tom Holland in that
Keanu Reeves.
in Spider-Man.
No, sorry, my bad.
I missed that part. Was that during Aunt May's death when I went to sleep?
Must have been during Aunt May's death.
It was.
I think that's an easy answer. I wonder if you guys agree. I think it's Willem Dafoe.
Oh yeah, I love his performance.
Dude,
like you actually,
amazing.
you see like two different sides of the Green Goblin, being like psychopathic and just being like a normal human being.
The way he makes his mouth move,
Exactly.
it's so good.
That's why they want him as I'm surprised he wasn't more common of a Joker, like thinking that he could have played the Joker in younger years.
Or an older Joker now.
That's yeah. Joker Beyond.
Give it to me.
Well, there's like a comic book where they had 3 Jokers.
The 3 Jokers.
No, it's called something else, right?
Joker War. It's literally called 3 Jokers.
Really?
Yeah.
They're that lazy with titling?
Yeah. I don't remember how that went. That one's popular though. That and Joker
that
War
one
were
because it's
popular.
popular because it has 3 different Jokers at 3 different ages, and they're all in the same universe. So there is an old Joker.
Yeah.
They just need to cast like middle-aged Joker and like teenage Joker or early 20s.
Thanks for watching this clip, guys. If you want to see full episodes or follow us on social media, links are in the description below. Bye.
Bye.